Start your morning with this. A few hours ago, news broke that most people will misinterpret by noon. The Speaker of Iran's parliament, the same man who sat across from Vance for nearly a full day in Islamabad, the one Trump personally flagged as America's channel, Iran's most credible dealmaker, had reportedly quit his post as chief negotiator. Why? The IRGC overruled a Qatari-brokered swap, 20 Iranian ships through the strait in exchange for 20 Gulf vessels. Simple math. But the generals didn't kill the numbers, they killed the idea underneath them. Ghalibaf walked in protest. Oil just touched 10,680, up 5% since Wednesday. China, silent. Everyone calling this a political spat inside Tehran, moderates versus hardliners, power ebb and flow. I think that reading misses the point entirely. This isn't infighting, it's a verdict. The faction inside Iran that believes resistance beats any deal just won. Not debated, won. China has seen this movie before. The last time a moderate diplomat got replaced by military brass, right when a deal was inches away, that didn't end in more talks. It ended in a different kind of conflict altogether. I call it the diplomatic displacement signal, and how Beijing reads it versus how Washington reads it tells you everything about what happens next. Let me walk you through what actually went down, because the details are the story. The Qatari proposal was clean. 20 Iranian vessels moved through Hormuz, 20 Gulf vessels moved through Hormuz. Reciprocal, equal. No one formally conceded sovereignty. Ghalibaf signed on. The IRG said no. Not because of the count, because of the implication. Their position is clear. Passage through Hormuz is coordinated with Iran. A reciprocal deal reads as between equals. That flips their entire sovereignty claim. The IRGC didn't reject the trade, they rejected the framing. And when Ghalibaf tried to push that framing anyway, it removed him. That's not a negotiating move. That's a structural decision. If honor is ashed and reverse, here's what that means for any deal America wants. Euronews and Iran International confirmed this week, under wartime rules, the Revolutionary Guards directly control every critical position. Ghalibaf, Arakchi, even Pezeshkian gets blocked. The appointment of Zoldater as Security Council Secretary, forced on the president by IRGC commanders. Civilian Iran still talks, still sends delegations, still issues statements, but every word gets a veto from the Guard. And today, the Guard vetoed the one proposal that had enough mutual give to actually move forward. Trump posted on Truth Social that Iran is in chaos, no clear leader, serious infighting. He's right about the fight, he's wrong about what it means. He sees weakness. This is clarity. A country doesn't get weaker when its most decisive faction tightens its grip. It gets more coherent. And a coherent IRGC is not closer to a deal. It just fired the guy who got closest. Now, why does China notice? Because Beijing doesn't read events like Western media. They don't see dysfunction. They see a pattern, diplomatic displacement. The moment military command sidelines civilian diplomacy, exactly when a deal is reachable. They've studied this. Not Japan 1941, that military takeover came years earlier. Think August 1914. Days before WW1, German and Austrian foreign ministers, the ones running back channels, got systematically bypassed by their own generals who activated irreversible warplanes. Civilians had off-ramps. Military had timetables. The timetables won in under 72 hours. Nobody planned that war, but it started anyway. Not saying we're heading to World War, but the mechanism is the same. When military brass replaces diplomats at the deal table, they've already calculated the cost of the deal is higher than the cost of continuing the fight. The IRGC blocked the Qatar proposal because accepting any reciprocal arrangement surrenders the very thing that makes Hormuz permanently theirs. And a permanently controlled strait is worth more than anything America is offering right now. China read that calculation perfectly, because they built a machine to profit from it. Before this war, China spent a decade on what I call the quiet decade, a parallel economy designed so that if Iran ever reached this moment, it wouldn't collapse. UN payments through second-tier Chinese banks outside SWIFT. A dark fleet of tankers with transponders off, transferring oil in Malaysian waters, relabeling Iranian crude, delivering to Chinese teapot refineries with no paperwork. A 1.2 billion barrel strategic reserve built entirely from sanctioned Iranian and Russian oil, all so that when Hormuz closed and oil spiked, China wouldn't be scrambling. Before the war, Iran exported 1.68 million barrels a day. During the most intense weeks, Hormuz largely shut. American bombing at peak, Iran exported 1.84 million barrels, more during the war than before it. China's customs show zero Iranian imports. But they show 1.3 million barrels a day of Malaysian crude. Malaysia produces half that. That oil is Iranian, and that system cannot be blockaded. Every barrel that reaches China is a rung on the IRGC's confidence ladder. Ghalibaf's resignation is then cashing in those rungs. China is on the permitted list, Russia too. The IRGC controls that list, and by rejecting a proposal that would have added Gulf vessels to it, they just signaled they intend to keep it selective. A selective Hormuz, run by an IRGC that just sidelined its own moderates, is a Hormuz where China's position becomes permanent, not provisional. Their silence, that's not indifference, that's endorsement. Here's what this means for the actual deal terms. America has three demands: no enrichment, open Hormuz on free navigation terms, and Iran's uranium physically removed. In Islamabad, Iran came 80% of the way. The diplomatic faction moved on enrichment timelines. America wanted a 20-year pause. Iran offered 5. The gap is 15 years. Uranium transfer, Iran said never. And Hormuz remained the hardest. Iran says passage requires Iranian coordination. America says free navigation without Iranian control. The IRGC's rejection of the Qatar proposal tells you what that 20% gap really is. It's not a formula for inspections. It's a single question. Does any passage through Hormuz require Iranian permission or not? Ghalibaf was willing to blur that line. The IRGC is not. And without him, the next negotiator will be someone the Guard approves. That person will not blur the sovereignty question, so that 20% gap won't shrink next round. It'll stay the same or grow. One more layer, the coverage is missing entirely. Iran is now collecting tolls at Hormuz. Ghalibaf's own deputy confirmed this morning first revenue just came in. Ships are paying. The IRGC controls that collection. They've just turned the strait from geopolitical leverage into a revenue stream. Leverage gets traded for concessions. Revenue gets protected. A deal that opens Hormuz on free navigation kills the tolls. A deal that preserves Iranian coordination keeps the cash flowing. The IRGC just rejected the proposal that would have moved toward the first outcome. That tells you exactly which deal they prefer. Meanwhile, Trump ordered the Navy this morning to destroy, not seize, destroy any Iranian vessel laying mines in the strait. That's an escalation the ceasefire was supposed to pause. The IRGC's response? Silence. No counter threat, no protest. Just quiet. Either they think they can absorb that order, or they think it changes nothing because the mines are already in the water. Either way, the IRGC is running both sides of today's news: the diplomatic displacement inside Iran and the operational silence on Trump's destroy order. Not a word from the faction that supposedly ran Iran's diplomacy as of this morning. Let me steelman the optimistic case, because it's serious. 1. The resignation isn't confirmed. It's from Channel 12 in Israel, citing an unsourced report. Israeli media has an obvious interest in portraying Iranian negotiations as collapsing. No Iranian official has confirmed. Ghalibaf himself hasn't spoken. No replacement named. This might still be unconfirmed. 2. Even if it's real, Arachi is still foreign minister. He was in Islamabad. He's been the diplomatic channel throughout. He said multiple times Iran is within reach of a deal. Losing Ghalibaf removes one voice, not the whole faction. Trump has signaled he wants a deal quickly. Talks could resume tomorrow. 3. The IRGC rejecting one proposal might actually narrow the gap, not widen it. The Qatar framework wasn't the only one. A different arrangement that doesn't imply bilateral equivalence on access might achieve the same practical result, while letting the Guard claim sovereign authority. The gap isn't Iran controls Hormuz. It's finding language where America says open and Iran says coordinated, and both are technically true. Those arguments have real weight. The unconfirmed source matters. Arachi matters. Victory through language formulas have worked before. But here's what the steelman can't explain. The IRGC didn't just block a policy. They removed the person who proposed it. That's categorically different. Blocking a policy leaves the relationship intact. Removing the policymaker signals the IRGC doesn't trust that person, or the next proposal he'd make. Even if Ghalibaf returns, even if the resignation is walked back, the Guard has publicly established veto power over the negotiating team's chief. Every Iranian diplomat watching got the lesson. Make proposals the IRGC likes, or leave. That lesson doesn't disappear even if his desk stays warm. And China, which has watched the IRGC consolidate power for 56 days, knows what happens when military commands learn they can remove diplomats. Here's what to watch in the next 48 hours. First, does Iran officially confirm or deny Ghalibaf's resignation? Not a Channel 12 report, an official government statement. The absence of a denial is as significant as a confirmation. A government that wanted to counter the narrative would deny it immediately. Every hour without an official denial is an hour the IRGC's version that Ghalibaf was sidelined for his positions goes unchallenged. Second, if the new negotiator is named, what's their background? If from the civilian foreign ministry, Arakchi's team, the diplomatic faction is still operating under IRGC's supervision, but still present. If from IRGC command experience, if from IRGC command, they've installed their own representative at the table. That distinction tells you which Iran shows up to the next round. Third, does China make any statement specifically about the negotiations? Now that Iran's diplomatic landscape has shifted, Wang Yi has called Araji 26 confirmed times during this conflict. If he calls today and the readout mentions sustained diplomatic representation or continuity, China is worried about IRGC displacement of the civilian team. If the next statement is a generic call for ceasefire with no reference to Ghalibaf, China has decided that what the IRGC just did serves Beijing's position better than an objection would. Also watch the toll number. Ghalibaf's deputy confirmed first revenue today. If Iran publishes cumulative toll revenue in coming days, they're establishing it as a permanent revenue stream, not a wartime measure. That tells you the IRGC is saying, this is how Hormuz works now. We manage it, we collect from it. Any deal that changes that ends a revenue stream we've already institutionalized. That's a very different negotiating position from the one Ghalibaf was trying to reach. Two paths from here. First path, Ghalibaf's departure is temporary. Iraq's chief fills the gap. America makes a gesture, modifies blockade language, releases a detained crew, signals flexibility on uranium timeline. The IRGC decides that's enough to return to talks without conceding the position they just asserted. No IRGC figure replaces Ghalibaf. Arakchi leads the next round. Diplomatic displacement was a warning shot, not a terminal event. This path requires America to understand that the IRGC's rejection was about framing, not numbers, and to find a framework that preserves their sovereign claim while delivering the practical outcome America needs. That exists. It's technically achievable. Second path, the sidelining becomes permanent. The next Iranian representative is someone the IRGC installed, not someone the civilian government chose. In that case, the 20% DAP on Hormuz sovereignty doesn't close. It becomes the floor, not the ceiling. The IRGC's tolls, selective access list, and coordinated authority become the starting point for any negotiation. America's free navigation demand becomes structurally incompatible with the bard's institutionalized management of the Strait. A conflict with non-negotiable positions on its central issue doesn't produce a deal. It produces an extended stalemate with periodic escalations until one side's calculation on survivability changes. China is positioned for both paths. First path, their facilitation role delivers influence over deal terms. Second path, their dark fleet, strategic reserve, and selective access deliver commercial advantage through an extended stalemate. Either way, China wins. And their silence this morning tells you which path they expect. Read the Times of Israel report on the Qatar proposal and IRGC rejection. Read Euronews on the Guards consolidation, all critical positions managed directly by Revolutionary Guards under wartime conditions. Read the toll confirmation from Ghalibaf's own deputy. Read what Trump posted about nobody knowing who leads Iran. Then ask the question no press briefing is asking today. If the man America was negotiating with just resigned because the IRGC blocked his proposal, and China hasn't said a single word about it, what is China reading in that silence? China already has an answer, and that answer tells you what comes after a country loses its diplomat at the exact moment a deal was within reach.